But like two more. Okay, so it is a little after 6 and time to get started with our meeting, I guess, or do we want to wait a couple more minutes for people to come in? Do we want to wait a couple more minutes for folks or get started right now? Looks like people are here now. Okay, so staff, should we do the call to order? Or roll call, excuse me. I'm calling it to order. Shall we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Yes, mine. You went somewhere? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. All right, thank you. So, this evening, we will be looking at proposed amendments 10 and 11. And first, we will start with approval of the agenda, then public comment, approval of the minutes. Yep. Oh, okay, here we go. Yes, show me. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, thank you. May we start with roll call, please? And I'd like to note that Commissioner Muchler is joining us online. Staff, could you please call the roll?
Doug Chadwick.
Present.
Eamon Collins. Liz Darrow. Joe Ellenboss. Lindsey Graham Ellenboss. Colton Kaltenfelt.
Present.
Brad Kelly.
Present.
Maya Morales. John Muchler.
Present, and can I be heard?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hannah Ordos.
Present.
Joel Pitts Jordan.
Present.
Andrew Redding.
Present.
Jessica Rienstra. Rod Stump. Jennifer Wright.
Present. Okay, so our next upcoming meeting is Thursday, April 24th in Bellingham North, Cordata Elementary School from 6 to 9 p.m. And tonight we'll be looking at proposed amendments 10 and 11. So our next item is to approve the agenda. Is there any objection to approving the previous agenda by consent? Okay, those in favor say aye.
So hold on. Sorry, Madam Chair. It's your first time. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So we actually have two sets to approve.
Okay.
So we will do ask for maybe comments on either one if there are comments or questions, and then you can approve both by consent.
Okay, so are there comments on either of the two?
That was my bad, not yours.
Okay.
We are talking about the agenda. Sorry.
Okay, so we're just approving
You can do that by
the
consent.
agenda. Okay, so are there any amendments people want to make to tonight's agenda? Can we approve that by consent? Yes.
Yeah, I'm not clear whether I should be making a motion now or can wait until later with regard to, I'm wanting to not to have any action taken on my proposal because it's being extensively redone. And so, oh, okay, so I'm not sure how to go about this procedurally, but I'm wanting to bump my proposal to the next meeting because it's being completely reworked as a result of the comments that were made at Committee of the Whole. Of course, there wasn't time in 3 days to actually do that. And also that wouldn't have given you time to actually properly review the new proposal. But I've taken very seriously all of the comments that I received at the last meeting and also from the public. And there's going to be a very major restructuring and rewrite of the proposal incorporating those comments and ideas.
Okay, so to clarify, are you wanting to not address it tonight, or you do, but just let's not take action on it?
I would love to be able to just say what I'm doing with it, and but not take action on it today.
Okay, unless Commissioner Farmer Joe has guidance, I will say that is fine. We can amend the agenda that way. Yeah, I want to know what you think how we should do that. That's right. No, this is approval of the agenda for tonight. Yeah, so I'm wondering, do we
I-
want to,
I have an idea.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to move action on that to the next meeting, but have some discussion of it under other business.
okay, and then can we have a second? Okay, and then if there's no further comments, we can approve that just by consent. Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. Okay, that is approved. Next up, we have public comment. Members of the public are welcome to address the commission on topics related to the Whatcom County Charter in person or via Zoom. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. If you have a comment on amendments 10 or 11 related to salaries, we ask that you hold your comments until we get to agenda item 6. We'll start with general comments on topics not related to amendments 10 or 11. Are there any in-person commenters signed up to speak to general items this evening?
Yes, but first, did you guys approve the agenda or just Redding's motion?
I thought we approved. Oh, that's a good question.
Just approve
It
the
was just my
motion.
motion.
Oh, just the motion. Okay. Well, let's back it up. Now, I guess we will move to approve the agenda. So the amended agenda. So,
Motion to approve the agenda as amended?
okay.
Second.
I was just wondering if someone could clue me in onto the amended part.
Commissioner Redding wants to just have discussion, no action on his item. Okay. So are we able to do a vote by consent? So those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay. So
I'm sorry, was there a second on that?
yes,
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
it was Jessica. All right. So are there any in-person commenters signed up to speak to the general items this evening?
Yes, first we have Leaf Schumann, followed by Wendy Strops.
Yes, please.
Um, I want to make a pitch for ranked choice voting. It's, I suspect that most, perhaps all of you are familiar with it, or at least have heard the words before. And in today's troubled world, it seems an opportunity for us to attach the most impact to our vote without, say, third-party candidates falling into the ballot box purgatory. And as an example, and in fact, the beauty to me of ranked choice, apart from the fact that it actually, I think, saves time and money, is that it's value neutral, whatever place you hold on the political spectrum. For example, in 2020, had you voted for Trump, maybe he wasn't your first choice. You wanted to perhaps go with Joe Jorgensen, a libertarian, your vote wouldn't have been lost. Say you wanted to go green and vote for Howie Hawkins instead of Biden, your vote wouldn't have been lost. What happens is every time your candidate fails to make a threshold, is it just drops down to your next candidate. And it's already in play in so many places in our country, in half a dozen or more states, in counties within our state. And it just seems the appropriate time for this issue to surface. And here's the opportunity. So ranked choice voting, if you need to kind of come up to speed on it, there are lots of sites online that'll acquaint you with it. But I'd like to leave that one in your brain when you go home tonight. Thanks.
Thank you for your work, Commissioners. My name is Wendy Zopp. I'm a Bellingham resident, and I'm here tonight because I think ranked choice voting is a common sense, practical reform that can bring better representation to all voters in Whatcom County, those who live in the county as well as those in the city. People tend to think RCV, think of it as a liberal reform, but I don't think that that's accurate. I don't think it favors either party. It favors the voters. And it's growing in popularity. It's been used in more conservative places like Alaska and Utah, as well as more liberal places like Portland, Oregon, and New York City. Republican elected officials who support RCV include Mitt Romney, John McCain, Senator Bill Cassidy from Louisiana, Liz Cheney, Lisa Murkowski, Bob Brown, the former Montana Secretary of State, and Mark Rassicot, former Montana governor. The conservative think tank, the American Enterprise Institute, has written in favor of ranked choice voting, as has the libertarian Cato Institute. An article was published just 2 days ago in the mainstream Republican outlet Real Clear Policy in favor of ranked choice voting. I brought copies for you today. Both the Democratic and Republican political parties have been hesitant to support RCV, but voters have more readily embraced it. They've approved its use in cities, counties, and states across the country. About half of the states now use RCV at some level of elections. It's resulting in elections that are more competitive and that lead to higher voter turnout and higher voter satisfaction. Please give us a chance to vote on RCV for county elections by putting it on our November ballot. Thank you.
Okay, are there
Yes.
any others wishing to speak in person?
Well, next we have Atul Deshmani, Marcus D, and then Natalie Chavez.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your work. So when I look at the public input chapter of the charter, I appreciate very much the mechanism for public input via resolutions, initiatives and referendums. That's good. But one of the things I feel when I look at that is that why does the public input section only talk about those? Because it takes a substantial amount of resources to put forward a referendum or an initiative. And so in thinking about that, in a properly functioning county government, public input should flow to the council. This public input should occur, number one, in the public comment period, like we're doing right now, in advisory groups, and through direct constituent contact. In each of these cases, I would like to see that council be accountable to the review and incorporation of the public input. I don't have a specific amendment, and this is a general comment, but I'd like you all to think about, many of you are involved. You've been involved for years, and you've made public comment, and you've engaged in other ways. And I absolutely support the language that's in this section regarding referendums and initiatives. I'm glad it's there. But what else can we put in this section to improve the fidelity of the county council to the public? I've got some thoughts, and if any of you want to follow up with me or I can follow up with you, I'd love to have further conversation on that, because I really think that it's an expensive, energy-intensive process to do an initiative or a referendum. How can we make the barrier of entry of thoughtful input from the public lower so that it doesn't have to go to that or have to go to the judiciary? I mean, that's expensive too. Not everybody can afford to hire a lawyer to do a Hearst case or whatever. So I'd like us to think about how to make public input more lubricated and more effective so our council every day, rather than just when there's an initiative or when there's a lawsuit, is responsible to the public. Thank you.
Marcus D.
Good evening. It's great to see all your faces in attendance here to these issues, and I appreciate it. Thank you for your work. Glad to have you. Marcus D., I have been doing a great deal of community work over the years in your community, and I can tell you, echo a little something that Atul was just talking about. 3 minutes is not enough, and especially if that's where the conversation stops, right? I suffer from that greatly, and many of us do, of course. You'll find that you have community members who arguably spend far more time on their given issues that they're dealing with than any council person does. And those people's voices need to be heard and amplified. They need to be responded to. And we need some mechanisms to get that response. And so whatever that looks like, right? I mean, one thing we could do is, I suppose, mandate some town halls where there is more back and forth response. 3 minutes is never enough, but when you come in here on a council night, as many of you have, I know that you know that it can go on and on and on, and you can't have 4 minutes. That just makes it go on and on further, but there's no response. You don't, very rarely do you get somebody say, could you come back up here and explain what you mean by that? And it's nice to hear that when you hear that, right? We all feel like we're being heard when that happens. But that 3 minutes is really, as Atul was describing, we have referendums and initiatives, and those are great processes. They are. But as he also pointed out, there's a lot of stuff that is just kind of a runaway train because we didn't listen when it was brought to us in the first place. And so we need those mechanisms. We need mechanisms, I'm going to, divert from the public input part of this and say that we need compliance on a lot of levels. We just lost our health director, right? Because of non-compliance is what we're hearing. And, it's fair to say that the council constantly puts forth resolutions that they don't get compliance from the executive. I'd like you all to look at that and how we can change that. How can we shift that power? I know that that's not what we're talking about specifically tonight in this chapter, and I'd like to give you more language about that later. But I do want to put that in your cap that we need to have that responsiveness and we need compliance. Once a legislative body has done their work and sees the need, we have a need assessment, we need that need met. And if it just falls away at the executive level, then the need is not getting met and we can just talk about it some more. So how can we get compliance? I'd ask you all to pick your brains about that. I know I am, and I'm working on that, and I hope to bring some language to you forward as the chapters move along for us to do that. I thank you for your work. And I appreciate anything we can do to make the people feel heard on more levels. Thank you.
Natalie Chavez.
Hello, my name is Natalie Chavez. Thank you for listening to public comments this evening. This is the first Charter Review Commission meeting that I've been able to attend, so I'm glad that I can be here tonight. In regards to ranked choice voting, I am not in support of that for the following reasons. It will cause confusion for voters, some of whom are already confused, and therefore it may cause more people to not vote and to not trust the voting process even more, which would then most likely cause more disgruntled community members and even more division in our community, which is definitely something that our community does not need, especially after the division that we've experienced over the last 5 years due to COVID-19 crap. In addition, ranked choice voting sounds like it would be more time-consuming and cost more money, and money and time constraints already seem to be an issue. I was also informed that some of you support ranked choice voting because it would give conservatives more of a voice in our community. However, if that's the case, then why are the liberal charter review commissioners the ones who are pushing for ranked choice voting and not the conservatives? If you really want to give conservatives more of a voice in the Whatcom community, then you will approve proposed Amendment 9, which will eliminate at-large county council districts, reducing the size of the council from 7 members to 5 members. The 2 county council at-large positions are filled by liberals who live within the city of Bellingham currently and for as long as I can remember. When was the last time that conservatives filled the 2 at-large positions and actually lived out in the county? So if you really want to give conservatives more of a voice, then you will approve Amendment 9 or make a change to that amendment to have at least one of the 2 at-large positions be filled by a conservative who lives in the county and not within the city of Bellingham. And I say this as a lifelong Democrat. Conservatives have not been well represented in many areas in our local Whatcom community for a very long time, from the Public Health Advisory Board to the Whatcom County Council and pretty much everything in between. Thank you for your time.
Next, we have Jessica Post, followed by Kit Muehlman and Rosemary Van Beek.
Good evening. Thank you all for volunteering your time to serve your community. My name's Jessie Post, and I'm also here to talk to you about ranked choice voting, but I love it. I love it so much that I walked in the Bellingham St. Patrick's Day Parade a few weeks ago with a big green banner for the Republic of Ireland, who used ranked choice voting for more than 100 years, very successfully. And the Northern Ireland has also started using ranked choice voting, but more recently. They adopted it in 1998 to end the political violence known as the Troubles. And while, luckily, we do not have the Troubles here, we do have a lot of division in our political climate. And just like in Northern Ireland, I ask that you consider having ranked choice voting be a way to bring people together and to find unity and common ground. And I know about this division because perhaps like some of you, we have political divisions in our families. And so my parents are more conservative. I have changed my views over the years and become more liberal. However, in the last few years is really the first time we started fighting about politics. And then I discovered ranked choice voting, and I talked to my parents about it. And even though they were initially skeptical of an idea brought to them by their liberal daughter, we talked over it and realized that we see a lot of the same problems, and a lot of the solutions to those problems could be solved through ranked choice voting. I like ranked choice voting because it's a system that encourages voters and candidates to find common ground. And so I ask that you consider letting ranked choice voting be something that the voters can decide on in November. Thank you.
Kit Muehlman.
Good evening, and thank you also for your service, and thank you for the opportunity to make a comment. Now, I have a map to offer. Can I just pass these out? Okay, great. My friend is passing out some around the room. Those maps for people listening online can be found at sightline.org. The map shows the distribution of voters in Whatcom County, and perhaps it will be helpful. So there are red and blue dots on these maps, and each dot represents 50 voters. And so you'll see red and blue dots all over the whole county. There are blue dots in the rural areas, and there are red dots in Bellingham. So our maps that so often show completely red districts or completely blue districts, but we're not like that. We're all blended, and there are even different shades of red and shades of blue among us. I think I'm an independent, and I get lumped into one of the colors. So I've never been very politically involved until recently, and I started paying attention to politics because I'm an artist, art teacher, and yoga teacher, and I like harmony. And I noticed that especially national politics, we don't see much harmony. And so I'm looking for some sort of way to make our politics better. I think it starts with voting. There are a lot of things to consider, a lot of ways to consider this. I'm a fan of ranked choice voting and proportional representation. But there are other ways, there's something, and this is a good time to talk about it. And I hope we find some solution soon so I can get back to making art. Thank you.
Rosemary Van Beek.
Y'all are gonna get tired of hearing from me before this is over. I am actually on there to discuss on the charter section of tonight's agenda. Under the charter discussion, there needs to be some language that states that the county council can review the initiative of referendum, but can't just decide not to let the public vote. The charter states, if the county council does not adopt the proposed measure and adopts the substitute measure concerning the same subject, the substitute proposal shall be placed on the same ballot with the initiative proposal, and the voters shall be given the choice of accepting either or rejecting both of the amendments. And shall be given the choice of accepting one or rejecting the other. Nowhere in the charter does it state that the county council has the right to just reject an initiative. 4 people should not have the right to reject what about around 8,000 or 9,000 people in our county want to be placed on the ballot. Thank you.
Those are all the speakers that have signed up.
Okay, I'd like to note that Chairperson Darrow is here, so I'm going to transfer chairing to her.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Wright, and thank you everyone for your patience. I got stuck in nasty traffic in Monroe. Do we have any folks who would like to speak online?
Nobody signed up.
Okay, so we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. We need to approve March 13th and 27th. We can approve them with one motion if we want to, but we could also take them one at a time in case there are any questions or comments. Are there any questions or comments related to the March 13th meeting minutes? Seeing none, are there any questions or comments related to the March 27th meeting minutes? Okay. Yes.
On the 13th, I did have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Relating to advice that was given to us at the investigation. Significant amount of time has passed, and I'm wondering. So I bring it up not to dispute or change anything in the particular minute. Not clear to this member what that's all about.
Okay, do we have a handheld mic for Commissioner Ellenboss? I see that Commissioner Muchler can't hear. Oh, great. Would you mind just restating that so that Commissioner Muchler can hear what you have to say?
Working now? Okay. The minutes, the 13th minutes talk about or list an indication from the county prosecutor's office of an ethics matter that was being investigated related to the commission. And I don't believe anything has been made clear on that. And I feel uncomfortable with the lack of clarity as it relates to that. And I'm bringing that to the body's attention, not disputing that it transpired, but maybe leaving the question as, what is this all about and when are we going to be advised? Simply because it's a big hammer hanging over the heads of each and every member here without knowing what it's all about.
Thank you for the question. I don't see details at first glance on that. I don't believe we have any more information. Do you want to?
I don't have information on the progress of that investigation as of yet. I have not been personally involved because of my role here in advising, separate from the investigation, but I can gather that information and provide it to you. Second times when we should see results.
Does that satisfy your question, Commissioner Ellenboss?
Further on that particular explanation later in the meeting at the appropriate time.
Okay. Do we have any other questions about the meeting minutes from March 13th or 27th? Seeing none, is there any objection? Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Redding. Go ahead.
Second.
Okay. We have a, a motion and a second to approve the March 13th and March 27th meeting minutes. All in favor? I was going to just do it by consent. Please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. We've got some administrative items, so I'm going to turn it over to Kirsten to cover those things.
Thank you. Number one, I wanted to let members of the audience know that at our last meeting at the garden room, there was a REI raincoat, which looks pretty expensive, left in one of the chairs. So if that is yours, please let me know, or if anyone else knows who that might be, but I don't believe it's a member of the commission. I wanted to just run through the page 16 in your packet. This is a timeline for your remaining time to set you up for the November election. And I just am telling you this to make you aware of the time constraints that we're under. So I would call your attention to July 22nd, which is a key date there in the middle of that timeline. That is a fixed date at which the council must vote to receive. They do not approve any proposed amendments that you have approved. They vote to receive them and to transmit them to the auditor. They must do it on that date. There is no ability to go beyond that date. And so a memo will be written and approved by this body, and that will go to the council and they will receive it. That memo has to be ready the Thursday or Friday before the July 22nd meeting date. Just FYI, there are going to be pro and con committees who are going to be solicited to write statements on behalf and against each proposed amendment that this body passes. We are required to do that. We are required to solicit the public to find out if any members of the public would like to participate. We anticipate that many of you will be involved in those committees because you are the best sources. But I want you to be aware that that's another loophole, not loophole, another hurdle that we have to get past in order to meet that July 22nd deadline. They also have to approve those names at that meeting. So going back up, I have just listed your remaining meetings. This does not include any other meetings that you add, but we have to have all final meetings, all final amendments done and approved by your July 10th meeting, unless there is another meeting that you schedule. So this is, and I went back up from there, but with your current schedule, our best estimate is that by May 22nd, that would be the last day of proposing any new amendments, which is pretty soon. It's a month and a half. So I just want you to be aware, we don't need to talk about it today, but we may need to, Chair, we may need to have a discussion about it in the future. And I'm happy to answer any questions about that timeline.
Okay, thank you so much, Kirsten. That's really helpful and very soon. Yes, go ahead.
I just had a question about the last meeting to include new amendments on the agenda. Is it that date because of the schedule that we set with the noticing the items and such, or is it?
It is not. It is the schedule that the council office is suggesting, and that is because of all the legal. I forgot to mention Kellen's role. He has to go through all the amendments and make sure that they're legal, and then write them in the correct language for the ballot initiative. So we cannot be pushing amendments past our ability to work on them. So that was a suggestion, and I'm happy to work with this body on dates. But I just want you to be aware that all those things are on the other side.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Let's see. we're going to move on now to old business, the proposed amendments 10 and 11. We will open the floor if there are any members of the public who'd like to speak to either item. Are there any commenters signed up to speak on these amendments?
Not on proposed amendment 10. We have one for proposed amendment 11. Would you like that now?
Yeah, let's do them separately. Commissioner Redding, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Thought we had done a motion where I'm going to do that under new business.
Oh, you may have. I wasn't here.
Pardon?
I wasn't here. So sorry. I didn't realize that. Okay, so then we're just looking at we get clarification.
We do not have new business today because there are no new proposed amendments. So my understanding was that we would, so Commissioner Redding.
Other business, I'm sorry.
Oh, great.
Yeah, that's what we-
Okay.
I don't recall that either. I just thought we were going to speak about it, but not make any changes. I don't know what that means.
Motion. Could I ask you to repeat what we did there? Because my understanding was the motion I made was to have discussion about that on under other business, but to move consideration of 10 to the next meeting in 2 weeks. I believe 2 weeks. Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, that was the motion under other business. I typed it down. I don't remember it either, but I typed it in.
Okay, so it sounds to me like we probably do want to hear from the commenter on proposed amendment 11.
John Westerfield.
Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you for taking public comment. Again, I'm compelled to speak out against the proposed Amendment 11, which would require salaries for the Charter Review Commission, and here are my reasons. First, you knew before you ever registered that this was an unpaid position. So how is it right to come back now and petition for pay? I recognize that a salary requirement would not take effect until the next charter 10 years from now, and then only if it was approved by the voters of Whatcom County. Could it be some of you are contemplating coming back to this commission in 10 years and you're planning a raise in advance? Secondly, you already have the right to submit an invoice for reimbursement for your actual expenses, such as gas, for attending these meetings. Next, the suggestion that persons in lower income brackets are disenfranchised and unlikely to run because of the cost involved is baseless. Yes, there are no homeless people on this commission, nor are there any billionaires. Anyone who feels compelled to run will find a way to do so, just as I did. Also, the salary would only apply to those who win, so the expense of running is still just a roll of the dice. Once elected, the aforementioned reimbursement would cover the actual expenses of serving. But there's a higher issue to be considered here. One of the reasons I ran for the position on this commission was the fact that it was an unpaid position, giving me a chance to set an example for others of what it would be like to serve my community in the purest form as an unpaid volunteer without hope of remuneration or any cost of campaigning or any pay for actually serving. In fact, I'm still willing to incur the cost in time and gasoline to attend all of these meetings, and I'm not going to get anything back for it. However, it does give me the opportunity to express my opinion and to speak with you for 3 minutes each time I come. Here we have Joel and Bob's over here serving for the 5th time on this commission, unpaid. We have Doug Chadwick over here, who served as a law enforcement officer for 29 years and would have served even more years. And he's willing to do it without pay because he wants to serve the people of Whatcom County. Yes, it was a paid position in law enforcement, but there's no amount of money that covers the stresses and dangers of being in law enforcement. I have a reason to know about that. Then there's John Munchler up here, who is on the wall, who has been in elected positions for more years than I can tell, and he does it for free also. And then there's me, who served 3 years in the Army and 15 years as a reserve police officer for the city of Ferndale. Not only was I not paid, but I had to buy all my own equipment, my own gear, and supply my own pistol. I did it because I cared about the people of Whatcom County. I'm not suggesting for a minute that none of the rest of you care about the people of Whatcom County. For all I know, you're all eligible for a Nobel Prize. But just in case you're not, perhaps you should think about this. What am I willing to do to serve my community only because it's in my heart to do so and not for any remuneration or pay? Being on this commission should not be a paid job. It should be a statement of your willingness to serve and only that. However, I am pragmatist enough to be able to tell you that I will not feel any less about any of you if you choose to vote for it. But I strongly urge you to vote against it.
Thank you. Are those all the speakers we have on this amendment proposal?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Morales, would you like to speak to your amendment?
I'm going to try not to be awkward with these mics. I'm not used to being in this space. Can everybody hear me okay? I think that's a yes. Okay, I see a thumbs up. All right, so I wanted to give a little context because this has actually been on several agendas and it has been moved. And it has also changed in that process. This week on the 7th, we actually had a committee of the whole meeting. And we met and had a nice discussion that was a bit more open, and we were able to take a little bit more time to share our thoughts on both of the amendments that are on this agenda. They are a little bit connected because the amendment I originally proposed would have retained the salary commission, and there was another amendment, which was number 10, that would actually have abolished the salary commission. And so there's been some work to try to harmonize these or figure out how to deal with this. This memorandum for Amendment 11 is updated as of today with a lot of the commentary and thoughtfulness and discussion amongst our group incorporated that we had at our meeting on the 7th. And so what this one is slightly different. And I think I should read through that so folks are very clear. What I essentially did was create a proposal that simply removed the language that says that charter review commissioners shall serve without salary, took out the without, very easy amendment, and left in the reimbursement for costs, although it sounds like that may be an ongoing discussion. And the reason I did this is because I think it's very clear that because of Amendment 10, we need a lot more discussion about how salaries will be set, how we currently set them, how we should set them into the future. And so it doesn't really make sense, I think, for my amendment to hash that out. What I have proposed here are sort of two options. So the initial part of this amendment proposes that that small language change happen and that our future charter review commissioners shall be salaried. The second part of it gives two options. One is if in the event, basically, that the Amendment 10 is rejected, basically, we would find a different metric to set this to, and whether that was setting it to a minimum wage base or whether that was just its current form, we would do that. If Amendment 10 is accepted, then we could fit this into that in a way that made sense. Either way, the framework that I'm proposing for this commission to be salaried is essentially we have a county council. It is the only other deliberative legislative elected body in our county. And so what I've proposed is that we compare across similarly employed roles to look at finding a salary that makes sense. In terms of doing that, it's really important to consider both responsibility and the actual, job that it is, the fact that it's elected, what kinds of autonomy and responsibility we have as a body. We basically do, if we were to move together in unity, have quite a lot of power on the Charter Review Commission and could do some pretty groundbreaking things. It really depends on the makeup of the body. But we do have a heavy responsibility because we are actually setting the framework for our local government, county government, excuse me. So I wanted to kind of find a way to compare that, and I think that the best lawful way to do that is to compare across similar roles. However, it does seem clear to me that this is less of a time commitment. It is a 7-month usually role. It does not require quite the level of granularity that our council does in terms of budgets and review of various codes. And so I've proposed what is essentially a quarter time type of role for this body. It would not be wise for it to be calculated hourly, because then you'd be into this sort of framework of like, if you stipend, if you create a sort of hourly expectation, then you're into a weird space in payment and in labor law, and you don't really want to go there. It should be an exempt position if you pay it. You should be able to put in whatever hours that you need to put in to do the work. And so that's a little bit of the framing for why I've proposed this the way that I have. I've also included in this packet, we had a pretty lively conversation about the word salary. And, you know, does it have to be that? Could it be stipend? Other people followed up with me and, you know, wanted it to be called something else. The reason that it's called salary is really that legal issue and needing to give it a general term that is flexible to both what we decide and the law, because salary is generally a term that we use for exempt status employment. If we are going to pay our future salary commission, currently there is a new piece of a ruling on the books as of 2024 that even sets an actual wage base floor for what can be considered exempt employment for professionals, et cetera. And so we may need to also stay within that range. It's a ruling. It could, it is being challenged. I don't know if it'll stick or not, but currently that's what we're dealing with. So, and that sets a minimum of $684 a week for a salary to be considered an exempt position. And so that's a new labor standard that I'm not sure everyone's aware of, so I wanted to include that in here. And then the other piece that I included was an addendum with some math, because one of the things that we talked a lot about and we spent a good amount of time on, and I think this is part of the reason that Commissioner Redding is bringing back a revised Amendment 10, although I'll let you speak to that, was math and trying to figure out, you know, how do we set something that is measured, that is predictable, that is ethical, that is not, you know, too much, not too little, and what makes sense. And so just borrowing his framework in an attempt to harmonize, I just want to explain the math you see on the page. This is page 33 for anybody who's looking at this packet. I think that's mostly us. I'm not sure if our audience has packets or not. So basically, I've just sort of like broken this into two sections of math. The first section is pretty much, there's no math there. Because we have a salary commission currently working, they will publish their results for 2026, I believe on May 1st. Is that correct, Commissioner Redding? May 1st?
I'm sorry.
Or maybe someone else can clarify. I'm pretty sure it's May 1st.
May 1st is the deadline. They may do it earlier.
So it may be earlier or later, depending on their schedule. But generally, sometime in May, we are going to get that solid information about what the salaries are that they have set. And so for proposal number 1, if we were to just base this, you know, leaving the salary commission intact, trying to base a future salary for charter review commissioners on that wage, because all of, I believe actually Commissioner Chadwick pointed this out in our Monday meeting, that these wages are all based on a percentage of the county executive salary. And so knowing that would be necessary to do a better sort of like outlook on math for the next 10 years. It would still be guesswork, but we might be able to do that at that time. And then number 2 gives us some math based on Commissioner Redding's proposal, which would have set sort of set a benchmark from where we are and able to calculate for the next 10 years a multiple of the state minimum wage and applying basically a 3% possible cost of living adjustment to that. For inflation, excuse me. And so those are laid out here in a cute little table. I guess the audience can't see this, but I'll give you a little teacher style look. And you'll be able to see that online as well for all the public that are here and listening on Zoom. It should be able to be viewable online. So essentially what we would end up with is a sliced down salary. I've taken the full year of county council amount of salary. There are 2 examples here in the table. There's a multiplier of 2.1 times the state minimum wage, which is currently $16.66. Try paying rent on that. and then a 2.2 multiplier. So this ends us up in 10 years from now, if there were a 3% stable inflation rate on that wage, it would end us up with these two numbers at the bottom. And I also have a note here that I don't vouch that every single piece of math here is perfect. I did this in an hour or so before this meeting, but I'm pretty sure I double checked my figures. So essentially what we would do is we would take that annual wage that comes out to, and then we would break that into 12 months, and then we would take 7 months of that wage. And that would be the annual salary for the Charter Review Commission of 2035. This would also create the need for a filing fee. So currently our Charter Review Commission, there was no filing fee. And the way that our charter is written, you file for this office and you run all the way from your filing date through the general election. You're automatically on the general election ballot, and there is no filing fee. So the barrier is very low in terms of actually being able to put your name in. But you do, depending on which district you live in or how well known you may be, you may or may not need to campaign pretty hard. I know that I can speak for myself. I definitely put a lot of work into campaigning, but not every person has to, and that's obviously optional. So there is that initial low barrier of no filing fee currently, so this would change that. And I put in here sort of what that would look like. So at the 2.1 rate, it would be a $286 filing fee. At the 2.2, a $287. When you parse down the numbers that small, there ends up not being a huge difference there. So essentially, we have laws around that. We can't change that because the state dictates those fees. And so if we decided to pay a future Charter Review Commission, we would need to expect that there would be a filing fee. There is, however, and I added this in here, there is a way for anybody who would like to file for office that they can't afford the filing fee can actually submit a signature petition to waive that fee. And that has to be equal to, let's see, I think it's 10% of the, am I correct here? Does anyone know this? I should have written this part down. It has to be a percentage, basically. It might be in here. It's we'll come back to this and I'll double check after discussion's happening, but essentially it's some small fraction of that is the number of signature. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's actually per dollar. So if the filing fee was $600, you would need 600 voter signatures. That's what it is. I've remembered. And so essentially it's still a lot of work, but it is possible. And so if folks cannot afford that amount, that is a possibility. And I want to just make sure everyone knows that, because as someone who is partially bringing this to create a more accessible way of serving the public for folks who really cannot afford to take an unpaid elected service role, I also want folks to be aware that there is also this way around a filing fee as well. And we even had someone do that, file for mayor and do that. So yeah, so that is a kind of broad overview. This has changed. I've taken out the salary commission part of it to just kind of stay out of that conversation, and we can have that conversation when we talk about Amendment 10. So this is a fairly simple amendment, and I'd ask for this commission to consider sending this to voters to decide. I feel like this decision will have the greatest impact actually on every single voter in our county who might want to consider running for this commission. And I think the impact on them is whether they can or can't consider it. And so to me, that possible barrier of access to democracy is really important. I also want to just, for folks who weren't able to listen to the discussion on Monday night, I also noted that one of the other important things about this amendment and paying a future charter commission is that essentially we have 6 counties in our state that are home rule charters that have this same exact section. It's been this way since 1978. And it is a bit antiquated, but it is also there because the original drafters of this charter wanted a democratically elected charter review commission. They didn't want an appointed one. And so one of the charter review counties in our state, which which I believe is King County, has changed to an appointed commission. All of their commissioners are very fancy. They all have, major pedigrees and law degrees and high positions. And it's a big and complex county. I can understand why they would have switched to that. Whatcom County is a bit different. And I think that it is also honoring the intent of why this was chosen to be an elected versus appointed body, to be able to ensure that any person in our county can run for and serve on this body, whether they have kids that they need to pay childcare for to be here, whether they have 4 different part-time jobs and they're going to give one of them up in order to serve on this commission. We really need to be looking at accessibility when we think about democracy. And so I would ask for my fellow commissioners to consider a yes vote on this. Thanks.
Okay, I'll open it up for discussion. Any comments? Oh, I see. Commissioner Mutchler and then Commissioner Ellenboss. Go ahead.
I'm wondering if perhaps Commissioner Morales would like to make that into a motion, and then we do have something to discuss.
Great question.
All right, in the interest of the timeline that we just got, that is fairly condensed and intense and is lighting a fire under our feet, hopefully, I will make a motion that we adopt this amendment. Do I need to read the amendment word for word?
No.
Okay, I would like to motion that we adopt Amendment 11. Is there a second?
I will second that. Commissioner Ellenboss, go ahead.
Yes, I rise to a point of personal privilege on this, Madam Chair, reminding the body that according to our rules, what comes before us on the agenda is the original amendment or the original proposal that was submitted in a timely manner and made its way through the timing process and got on our agenda. There are only 3 ways to accomplish what Commissioner Morales wishes to address. One is to move the motion, her original motion, and then subject it to the amendments that she has been talking about for approval by the body. The second means was to, in the committee of the whole, discuss it, come up with a proposal that the committee of the whole voted on as a resolution, and then that if it had a majority of the committee of the whole would have proposed that resolution to the body, the sitting formal commission, and the sitting formal commission could vote yea or nay. Or the third option would be to in order to utilize that particular avenue, to refer it to a committee of the whole and have that committee of the whole come up with that language, including her proposed amendments. Those are the only 3 legitimate ways for us to do it, and those come per the rules that we adopted and Robert's Rules of Order, which are our controlling rules.
I think you raise a cogent point that actually this was not noticed as of the Thursday before due to the fact that we had a committee of the whole discussion, although I did notice that there would be a changed amendment. I did not have it specifically drafted up. And so I think for that reason, I think we may need to actually, in order to consider the amendment I would like us to consider, which is what it is here in this memo, I think that I may need to do what Commissioner Redding has done and withdraw my motion for a vote on this issue at this meeting, and instead motion to hold discussion and vote at a time certain, which is our next meeting.
Well, can I answer a question that relates
Yes,
to
you
that?
can.
Well, we still are faced with, or you still are faced with, unless you modify your motion and submit it to go through the time frame again. If you want to make that a substitute motion or reword your motion, that needs to get submitted in the appropriate time frame to make it to our agenda to then be considered. And And I'm not here to recommend which way you go, but that seemed like that would be more timely than going through another committee of the whole, getting the resolution and having that sent to the body.
Thank you, Commissioner Elmas. I don't intend to take this back through a committee of the whole. I do intend to withdraw my motion to vote on it because I do think procedurally you're correct. I think this should have been noticed as it is, the Thursday before the meeting in which we voted, and I do want us to make sure we're following our rules. So I will resubmit this I did email it to Kirsten, and she did send it to everyone, but I think with not enough notice. And so this should be properly noticed. And so hopefully this has been interesting food for thought. I think that might have to end our discussion. I'm not sure about that.
The motion is withdrawn, so yeah, we can move on.
All right. Thanks for hearing me out.
Okay. Great. Not sure how much stamina the body has, but we just have one thing left, which is the charter section discussion. Normally we would take a break right here, but since I just got here, I want to look to my colleagues to find out if you want to get through the next item and call it, or if folks are needing a break right now, we can honor that.
Chair Darrow. Okay, Commissioner Mutchler has his hand up.
Hi, Commissioner Mutchler, go ahead.
I would like to rewind the tape about 14 seconds and suggest that a remedy for the Amendment 11 in order to move forward tonight would be and I think that Commissioner Allenboss is saying this, the original motion can be made, and if there's a second, and then after that, the motion can be made to amend it. Because it's the same topic, we're not changing the general subject matter. We do expect amendments to come to us, and we might change a number or change a date or something like that. So if there was interest, since we're early, if there is interest in the commission moving forward, I think it would be proper for the original motion to be made, and then an amendment can be made to bring it up to the current proposal. Just a suggestion.
Go ahead, Commissioner Morales.
I'll just briefly address that. Thank you so much for that suggestion. I think that really to follow the rules well, that would not be advised because originally when this agenda went out, my original motion wasn't even in it. So that wasn't even properly noticed. So I think it would be best to just do this properly and do it as we've decided. Thank you so much.
Okay. I saw some folks indicate we need a break. So it's 7:05. We'll be back at 7:20. It is 7:23. I'm calling this meeting back to order. Thank you, Commissioner Collins, for the cookies. They are delicious. Okay, so now we're going to do our deep dive into Article 5, the public interest. We don't have any presenters today from county staff, so I'm going to open the floor up to fellow commissioners for discussion. Go ahead, Commissioner Morales.
I'll just go ahead and break the ice and get us started. Thanks everyone for having such a fun cookie break. I wanted to just note, since we're in the public interest section, that we had 2 public commenters today who spoke to the need to involve the public more and to provide a way for public to give like real substantive input on our county governance, as well as some accountability and ability to actually hear back from lawmakers. And so I wanted to let those members of the public know that one of the things I'm very interested in doing is creating a town hall structure for our county. And that would be a little bit beyond a traditional town hall where you simply hear from a politician, and a little bit more like the kinds of town halls we see on the East Coast, where there are actually residents at each town hall and people can actually consider issues and vote on those, and have those issues elevated back up to the county government. And so that is one of the things I would love to propose. I am not honestly sure that we have time in this timeline to consider such a large proposal, because I think that probably needs some working. And so that may be something that I would love to bring to council instead. But I wanted to let you know that it is an idea that is forefront in my mind. And I do want to find ways to involve our public that are more constructive and that are more feedback driven and reciprocal and accountable, because I think that our public has been crying out for that for a long time. I've been one of them. And so I think we need to find a way.
Go ahead, Commissioner Collins.
It wasn't my amendment, but I just want to say I hope we will come back to at maybe the next meeting or one in the near future, the signature thresholds for the referendum. I don't like the idea that we would just have one of these processes out there that is still tied to the gubernatorial election, if everything else is potentially tied to the county executive. So I hope we will come back to that. At whatever percentage.
Thank you. It's interesting. I'll just say for clarity, I was just looking at that section and it looks like in 1995, that was changed from gubernatorial to general. But when we discussed that at an earlier meeting, I didn't see that language. And so I'd want to clarify with legal, is the referendum linked to the last general election, which would solve that conflict? In which case, maybe it's just a technical wording issue, or what we looked at during our discussion was using that word gubernatorial still. So it'd be great to clarify that.
Make sure I understand the question. It's that whether the signatures required for a referendum is tied to the gubernatorial or the executive election in the current charter. Is that the question?
That's right, because this language right here uses the word general election, which is not a word I've seen used in regard to signatures before. So I'm just wanting to clarify.
I'm looking at the charter right now, and it is 8% of the votes cast in the last regular gubernatorial election is the language in the charter in the referendum.
Okay,
section currently.
so it's just incorrect in our packet.
I will say that the 1995 changed it to general, but then the 2015 referendum changed it back to gubernatorial.
Oh, I see. Thank you for clarifying. Is that what you were
So,
saying?
so behind the actual language is a set of what
I see.
over time, what has changed in the document.
Got
Does
it.
that make sense?
Yeah, that makes more sense.
That's what
Thank
you're
you.
looking at.
Okay, so it was changed. So in that case, and for clarity for folks who weren't here at that meeting several months ago, we now have one signature requirement that is linked to the gubernatorial, and the other two processes for gathering signatures are linked to the county executive. So what Commissioner Collins is saying is that that's hugely confusing, even more so than how it was before. I don't know if you were saying that, but that's what I think. So hopefully we have the time to fix that piece. Any other comments on this chapter?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Chadwick, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, fellow commissioners. I think at this point, if it's appropriate, we've had a couple people from the public speak about their thoughts, but didn't have enough time to share some of those ideas. And I think in the interest of public comment and making sure that citizens are heard, I would yield my time to, I know we have whether Marcus or Atul, I know you mentioned that you had some thoughts on that. If you wanted to take a little more time and address the charter, feel free. Well, that's where everything starts, right?
My name is Atul Deshmani, Whatcom County. I reserve the right to be anonymous. But anyway, so a town hall is definitely one of them, perhaps requiring each county council members to have at least one or maybe more town halls every year. Commissioner Morales talked about that. Another potential idea for having that kind of accountability feedback would be to create a help desk. Even our most annoying service providers have help desks or other utilities like that. So why can't our county council implement something like that where it could be automated and maybe Marcus could only do 2 a year? But we could submit a ticket once. I mean, none of it's obviously not urgent. We're talking about policy and ordinances. We're not like, we haven't fallen into a hole. We need to be dug out of a hole or anything like that. So it wouldn't be under the same kind of time pressure, but perhaps, ticket number 1 would go to council member number 1. Ticket number 7 would go to council number 7. And then it keeps rolling around and, forcing county council members, sorry, Tyler, to have to respond to specific constituent requests. Now, I'm not trying to get in trouble with anybody, but I know as an elected, I have more than once fielded a constituent request for a county council member or city council member. And I'm not going to name names, but the reality is that I'd like to see more responsiveness from our city and county council members. And I think this could, I'm just looking for ways of improving it. It doesn't have to be any one of these ideas, but just these are the kinds of things that I think might help responsiveness. And, again, it's too expensive for an individual to have to go out and initiate an initiative or referendum. And I applaud those people that do that. I'm not saying anything against that. I'm just saying that what about a lower bar, which can perhaps catch a problem way ahead of time and get it on the docket or on the agenda for a county council member so that it gets discussed. That's all. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Chadwick.
Thank you. I see another member of the public here, and then Marcus, go ahead.
Good evening, commissioners. I'm Misty Flowers. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to speak at the end here. I wanted to speak on a couple things. First, I want to speak on ranked choice voting. I think it's a terrible idea. The auditor, I was listening to the last meeting, and she made it very clear that it would be more expensive. It would be more time consuming to count votes, and it would leave the voters even more confused and disenfranchised as far as how their votes were actually counted and where those votes went. So there's been a lot of ranked choice voting being proposed in a lot of different states, and 5 states rejected ballot measures to establish ranked choice voting in 2024. There's been a number of states that are actually working to ban ranked choice voting. So I think that if you guys do bring it to the ballot, you're going to be really hard pressed to find a lot of people that are going to support this kind of bad idea. As somebody that is conservative minded, I absolutely feel like I'm in the minority. I think that most of you guys can agree with that. I heard you talk about that you think that Republicans are in the minority and probably will be for some time, is what you stated in one of the charter review meetings. So when I hear ranked choice voting being proposed over and over by Democrats, I find it really laughable, because you don't hear Republicans coming to you asking for ranked choice voting to have their voices heard more. So if the majority is wanting it and they're already in position of power where they're heard, it's very confusing for a conservative to think that it would be in our best interest. I also think that across the board, voters are confused. Voters are confused when they read those voter pamphlets. And in the last meeting, when you guys were discussing the length of a voter pamphlet, many of you talked about how overwhelmed voters are. And I would absolutely agree. The charter review was a grand example of that. During a presidential year, people are already overwhelmed. They had a really hard time understanding what the heck any of you guys are going to be doing here. And by the looks on your guys' faces, I think many of you guys can agree. So if it was that confusing on something that happens every 10 years in our county, imagine having ranked choice voting, where I've listened over and over to ranked choice voting concepts. I still could not explain to you clearly what it is or how it works. And I would be hard pressed to find anybody here to really clearly define it, so that all of us could walk out of here tonight and be able to explain it to the average voter. So I implore you to please think about what you're presenting to the voter and how that would actually play out when it comes down to a voter guide, a voter pamphlet. The more overwhelmed voters get, the less they want to engage with the process. The other thing that I want to say is, when it comes to the charter council positions that I thought was going to be proposed tonight, the amendment from Joe Ellenboss, because it was online. I think it's a great idea to move back to just having 5 positions. But again, I'm the minority. I know many people in the county who absolutely do not feel represented by the council at all. And so when you have 2 at-large positions and both of them live within Bellingham city limits and they're really not representing the county people, it's really questionable why we have 2 extra positions that represent Bellingham. So I would like you to consider that. I know it's probably not going to happen, because when you're in the majority, you probably don't want to lose 2 of your seats. But I appreciate it as a consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, just so you know, Commissioner Muchler has his hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Muchler.
I would like to remind the commission that we adopted an agenda earlier this evening, and we're working really hard to follow our rules. So for us to reopen public comment, I would remind the commission that someone would have to make a motion to do that. It would need to be seconded, and then the majority of the body would need to approve it. A single commissioner can't change the agenda. I know it's a small point and a minor point, but we're getting things done because we're keeping our rules. We're outside the rules. Both the speakers were great. So if we want to open up public comment again, a commissioner needs to make a motion to do that, needs to be seconded, needs to be approved by the majority of the body. Just so you know.
Appreciate the point, Commissioner Muchler. Thank you. Is there anyone here who wants to make that motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. I don't think we need a roll call on this. Would all who are in favor of reopening public comment indicate so by saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay.
Opposed?
We have 2 opposed.
Madam Chair, specifically, you're talking about comments relating to this article.
That's what we're talking.
So
Yes, thank you. Excuse me, who is opposed other than Commissioner Muchler? Commissioner Redding. Thank you. Are there any other members of the public here present or online? You can raise your hand who would like to speak to Section 5 of the charter. Thank you. Commissioner Mutchler, I'm guessing that is a stale hand up. Am I correct?
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have anyone online who wishes to speak to Section 5 of the Charter? Okay. Okay. We're going to move on now to other business, which we know we have one item, and that is Commissioner Redding's discussion of amendment proposal number 10.
Yeah. First of all, I want to thank Commissioner Ben Farmer Ellenboss for having, oh, I'm sorry. Oh my God, what a slip. Uncle Joe. I'm sorry, Joe. For having brought up the suggestion of doing a committee of the whole. I think that was a really excellent suggestion, and it led to a lot of good discussion 3 days ago. So I just want to start by thanking him for doing that. That was a fantastic idea. Secondly, I want to indicate that I listened to all the comments that were made there, and there were a lot of very helpful comments. I want to also acknowledge Commissioner Stump for having brought up his concerns about using minimum wage. I would like to amplify on that. So I'm moving in another direction as a result of that and other input. And a key reason for that is that it occurred to me, gosh, if we did this and say that the state suddenly raises the minimum wage substantially, well, then we're automatically raising, and by huge amounts, the salaries of all of our elected officials. And that means that there would be something external to the county that would be dictating what our salary structure is. And so that's something I had not anticipated. And as soon as I realized that, I realized this is not a good way forward. So I'm not going to be using that when I come back to you in 2 weeks. It's going to be a very different looking proposal. It's still going to try to meet the set of goals that I set forth, that the county executive should be paid less than the governor, that the prosecutor should be paid less than the attorney general, and that a county legislature should be paid less than a state legislature. And also that we shouldn't be paying more for other positions than counties 4 times our size are paying. But it's going to be a very different approach. I'm also taking to heart Farmer Joe Ellenboss's suggestion that it's got to be kept really simple. Okay, if it's going to work with the voters, it has to be very simple. And it also has to be very compelling. So I'm challenging myself to meet that standard in this and going to come back with a set of very simple concepts. And furthermore, following Joe's suggestion, I'm going to be putting together a draft sort of voter statement to give an idea of, it's a challenge to me to have to think, how do you do this in a way that's going to be utterly persuasive, right? And so that challenge also forces me to think about how it's put together so that you can have a successful voter statement. But that I wanted to let you know that it's a major change of direction. I was going to use Joel's suggestion, but I can't now because I'm not even using, minimum wage, and so there'll be no annualized minimum wage. So there's the 52 weeks instead of 50 weeks. I'd already put that in. You'll see that in here, but down there's no point for that. So all I'm saying in this is that I really appreciate all the input we've gotten both from fellow commissioners here and also from the public. And I will have for you a very different looking proposal that will go in the packet, 1 week before the next meeting. So there'll be plenty of time to review that. And in the meantime, I'm going to be doing some further consulting as well to fine tune this and to, get a lot of additional input. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Morales.
I'd love to make a request of Commissioner Redding and or staff. I'm not sure who would end up doing this, but it would be very helpful to also have the math for what I've proposed in my amendment that harmonizes with yours. So it would be really helpful to be able to show the public what a salary commission, I'm sorry, what a charter review commissioner would be paid using your newer system, and sort of have some kind of framework. I know that it's a bit difficult to scramble the day of and provide the right math if I don't know until the last minute. And so I would make that request that that also be made available to the commission. I think we need that information in order to consider what we're looking at.
Go ahead, Commissioner Redding.
Yeah, if I may respond to that, I would actually suggest reversing the order in which they're considered, the two, because I think it makes more sense to consider yours first before we look at mine.
Point of clarification, I think that they're heard in the order that they're numbered. Is that true? We don't change the order that we hear them?
That's what I was
Make a
told.
motion to reverse?
Yeah,
the
that
order?
was
I'm
what I
not
was.
sure there's a rule about that, to be honest.
And I also want to clarify that I don't think the order of hearing it is what is needed. I think the actual information and the math is what's needed. And so I think whether we hear one first or the other, we will need before our meeting to have those numbers there. So if I don't know what the basis is for your calculations, it's hard for me to make mine and give the public an example as well as the commissioners an example. So it's just a request. You don't have to satisfy it, but I just wanted to put the request out there.
Commissioner Ellenboss.
Yes, Madam Chair, it would seem that it's not up to you or any one of us to decide that order. It's predicated on the order in which it's received, because it's my position that Mr. Redding's, my interpretation would be that Mr. Redding's rewrite is a total new item to come before us, just like Commissioner Morales, and they take the risk of priority or timing as it relates to it. And that's what will guide when it would come before us, I would think.
That makes sense to me. I guess we'll wait and see how that plays out. Go ahead, Commissioner Redding.
Can we get a clarification from the attorney on that?
I think that's how you've done things with how you've received amendments so far. I think the body can set its own agenda. If it decides it wants to discuss one proposal at one time and another at another time, you can decide as a body to do that. But as a standard rule of when things are introduced, I think it does depend on when it's received by staff.
And as we know, there's an exception to every rule because we still haven't heard amendment proposal number 9 brought by Commissioner Ellenboss. So I think that the flexibility piece is when commissioners are reworking, especially together with their colleagues. Sometimes these timelines get moved around. And so what I'm hearing from council is that there's not a hard and fast rule, but it makes sense, if possible, that what comes forward first is what the body considers first. And we do vote on that in our meetings with new business. So go ahead, Commissioner Redding.
Yeah, I just want to make clear, it's not my intention to include pay for charter review commissioners within mine when I bring it up. And so that's why I was suggesting that a reverse order might make more sense, because if it were the will of this body that we do include that, then we'd know that before mine comes up and could be incorporated into that. But we'd need to know that first.
Can I just clarify?
Understood, yes. And then Commissioner Wright. Go ahead. And then yes.
Well, I just wanted to clarify, I'm not asking for you to change your amendment. I just am asking for cooperation on the framework of numbers so that I can do math to apply it to mine. And so it's just a request for cooperation. I don't think it really matters what order it comes in. If you don't want to actually incorporate it into yours, that's totally fine. I really don't think it's a question of order. I think it's just a question of collaboration on numbers. That's the request.
I noticed there was a calculation for Commissioner Morales' proposal that was based off of like percentage of the minimum wage. So my understanding is you're wondering how the calculation will be so that you can think about adjusting it, because public will want to know if they're going to be in support or not in support. How much money are we talking about? Right? So that's, anyway, just clarifying that for me.
Thank you. Do we have any other items for other business from commissioners? Oh, I see a hand, Mr. Mutchler. Commissioner Mutchler, thank you so much for grabbing my attention. Go ahead.
Well, that is okay. And I appreciate the effort that's been made to make it possible for me to participate. And I really enjoy this and I value it. I also want to thank Commissioner Reding. I'm pretty sure nobody has put more work into an amendment than Commissioner Reding over the last, I've been here twice. But unfortunately to me, both Commissioner Reding and Commissioner Morales illustrate the point I was making on Monday was we've opened up a can of worms. The very fact that we're going to get brand new, reworked, changed proposals illustrates what I was trying to communicate on Monday, which is we're trying to predict a future, which predict 6 months from now, but we're trying to forecast the next 10 years. We're also trying to decide on compensation for positions that none of us have ever held. And maybe some of you will, that'd be great, but none of us have. So again, I think this is beneath the commission to delve into this subject. I understand the frustration with high compensation or perceived high compensation. I probably agree with that. But I disagree that this commission should attempt to fix this. And this, the way this thing is headed, again, the can of worms illustration is pretty clear that it's very, very difficult. And once we finally do have an amendment proposal on the table to discuss, it's going to take a lot of time. So I really wish we weren't doing this, but since we are, I'm glad I get to participate. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other items for other business? Commissioner Rienstra.
Thank you, Chair. Hearing significant public comment as well as significant email comment, which I'm very grateful for and thankful to each of you for showing up. I really believe that it would be appropriate and prudent to consider a committee of the whole to discuss both the pros and the cons of ranked choice voting. I think it deserves our due diligence to hear from subject matter experts from both sides. And I would like to make a motion to discuss this at a committee of the whole at a time certain between the dates of May 1st to May 14th to be decided via a calendar poll from our staff.
Go ahead, Commissioner Ellenboss.
I would like to propose, I guess, that we add to that committee of the whole meeting. We're going to talk about ranked choice voting, to talk about fair representation and all its forms, what that could look like.
Yeah, happily accept that. Thank you.
Jessica, I'm sorry, Commissioner Rienstra, what was the date? May 1 to?
Time between May 1st and May 14th.
Thank you.
Hopefully to poll and see when works best. Just noting again our significantly quick moving timeline. I think it'd be great to have that discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a motion to convene a
Madam
oh,
Chair,
go ahead.
could you repeat or somebody repeat what it was that Commissioner Ellenboss mentioned should be considered as well?
Commissioner Ellenboss said fair representation. Do you want to say more about that?
That might include your amendment, Joe.
Okay, well, as it relates to that, I had some comments at the appropriate time tonight.
Now is as good a time as any. Go ahead.
Are you saying?
Is it prudent to this motion, or are you saying that it's not related?
Well, I concur that the proposal as it relates to removal of commission positions itself needs consideration in a committee of the whole as opposed to just our body voting on it. And I have additional comments as it relates to that. If we're wanting to wrap that all in as one, I'm not sure that both of those should be considered at the same meeting because it's the agendas that we will come to in that meeting will be different. And so it probably would be more appropriate to have two separate committee of the wholes, because quite frankly, I'm not sure, as I submitted the removal of 2 positions, all kinds of scenarios have come back to me from other folk. One is the not necessarily removal of, but the splitting of the 2. And the statement is it's not legal to do that, but there are all kinds of ways to make the one man, one vote situation work. So in fact, we're not removing 2 council positions. We're just reassigning who they represent, what portion of the county they represent. The other thing that came forth from a county council member was that, well, be careful what you wish for, because the council may propose, or the public may prefer, 7 council positions, a redistricting in 7 specific districts. And then the alternative that comes up is, and it's been discussed before by previous charter review commissions, is a striking of the separation of powers, doing away with the executive and the legislative body, and going back to, as 34 other counties in the state have, 3 county commissioners. We would we'd retain the balance of what our charter is, but the elected officials would be those 3. And that's interesting in that it brings forth the need for Colton's proposal related to an ombudsman. So it becomes a complex issue, and as a result, as it relates to that, I would ask that you not consider putting the 2 of them in, that we have a separate committee of the whole as it relates to that. I leave that I yield to the body's decision as it relates to that, but that would be my suggestion.
Commissioner Ellenboss, does that rationale make sense to you?
As long as we accommodate for that conversation as well.
Okay, understood. So it sounds like we're gonna, oh, go ahead, Commissioner Morales.
I wanted to just motion to amend this motion by changing our requirements for notice at the next meeting, because I think as what came up in this week, where we had some changes and mine had not been properly noticed to follow the rules, but it would have been nice to knock it out in this meeting if possible. If we have another committee of the whole and there is something actionable that is, reconfigured and would like to be heard at the following meeting, but doesn't meet our before the meeting Thursday deadline of notice, I just don't want us to bump into those rules again. So I'm wondering if there's a way that we can ensure that if a proposal such as yours is discussed in a committee of the whole, that it doesn't have to actually meet those same notice requirements prior to the next meeting. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, and it sounds like a separate motion than the one that's on the table.
Is it? Okay.
I
I'll
think
bring it
so.
separately. Sorry
Yeah,
about that.
okay.
I just wanted it
Yeah.
to apply to this meeting in case that happened. So.
Okay, perfect. Commissioner Reinstra, are you fine with striking the language fair representation from your motion?
I think it's
you
fine
wanna leave it?
to include. I agree with Commissioner Ellenboss that they're 2 very heavy conversations and we need to have both of them. But I think fair representation really is a topic that will be part of both of those meetings. So I'm happy to keep that in the language.
Okay. We have a motion to convene a committee of the whole meeting on ranked choice voting and fair representation for a time certain between the dates of May 1st and 14th. Staff, would you please call the roll?
Would it be 2 meetings or 1?
I think we need to do that one separately. We're talking about,
That's fine.
okay.
Doug Chadwick,
Yes.
Eamon Collins,
Yes.
Liz Darrow,
Yes.
Joe Ellenboss,
Yes.
Lindsey Graham Ellenboss, Colton Kaltenfeld,
Yes.
Brad Kelly,
Yes.
Maya Morales,
S.
John Muchler,
Yes.
Hannah Ordos,
Yes.
Joel Pitts Jordan,
Yes.
Andrew Redding, Jessica Rienstra,
Yes.
Rod Stump, Jennifer Wright.
That motion passes 15-0. And with Commissioner Morales's permission, I'd like to give Commissioner Ellenboss the opportunity to make a similar motion about a separate committee of the whole, and then we can go to your motion.
So moved.
Can you be more specific? I'm sorry. Are you moving to hold hang on, let me see if I can help.
My request to the body would be to approve a separate committee of the whole meeting or meetings as needed to deal with the amendment or the spin off that might come from the proposed amendment to remove two council positions.
Do you have a time certain?
No, I do not. I submit to the body, and the availability is determined by staff.
Do we have a second?
Is it possible to restate your motion a little more simply? I'm unclear how many meetings you're asking for.
Well, I'm not necessarily interested in it by way of explanation. The reason I said committee of the whole or meetings of committee of the whole was as we get into this, hopefully this is not end up being purely a partisan situation. Hopefully we have the ability to review several of those concepts. And in so doing, it would be my hope that we could do it in one, but that if the necessity of an additional one rises, because I wish, as it relates to that topic, that the end of that committee of the whole, the body can at least have enough consensus to come to a resolution that then comes back before the full commission in a format that we can appropriately vote yes or no and put the item to rest.
Go ahead, Commissioner Collins.
Yeah, for me, it feels like it's all part of the same conversation. I mean, how many seats we're electing to and our method of election, however, we're getting at a fair representation of the voters. I think I hear you saying, like, it might be, I guess to my thinking, your amendment would come up in that same initial conversation. But if more time is needed, I guess, can I suggest that maybe we schedule a second committee of the whole as needed, and then so that we can choose a date that works for people, and then at that first meeting, if it seems like we still need more time, we then already have something on the books.
And Madam Chair, if I could be so bold, I would include in that motion that it be a committee of the whole only. It need not be a meeting where we go through the rest of the protocol. That we call it into order, go right into a committee of the whole so our time can be effective. And
That sounds good to me. The motion, as I understand it, is to convene a committee of the whole meeting or meetings to discuss amendment proposal number 9. We do not yet have a second on that motion. We have a second on the motion. Seeing no further discussion, Kirsten, will you call the roll?
You can do it. Eamon Collins,
Yes.
Liz Darrow,
Yes.
Joe Ellenboss, Lindsey Graham Ellenboss, Colton Kaltenfeld,
Yes.
Brad Kelly,
Yes.
Maya Morales,
Yes.
John Muchler,
Yes.
Hannah Ordos,
Yes.
Joel Pittsjordan,
Yes.
Andrew Redding, Jessica Rinstra, Rod Stump, Jennifer Wright, Doug Chadwick.
Yes.
That motion carries 15-0. Commissioner Morales, would you like to speak to your idea?
Motioning on the fly. I'd like to make a motion that we reduce the amount of time needed to notice an amendment that comes out of a committee of the whole process at the following meeting, so that we don't end up wasting time in rules, sort of red tape, and that we can actually hear amendments as they come up and are reformulated. I'll explain a little bit what that means to me in my brain. I don't know if it's making sense to everyone, but I'll use mine as an example. So I had an amendment prepared and then I had some changes I wanted to discuss. And we had a really lively discussion on 2 amendments at our committee of the whole. I reformulated as I thought made sense per our discussion and brought it back to this meeting. But because it wasn't properly noticed, we really couldn't even vote on that. I think we could avoid that by changing our notice requirement and changing our rules to accommodate work in process and a final version the day of or the previous day. And I'm not sure if we can do that, but I think I wanted to suggest that because I'm seeing our timeline and I'm kind of a little nervous as to whether we're going to have enough time to do all of the steps that we need to do in the amount of time we have.
Commissioner Morales, can I ask a question? Are you talking about notice to the public or notice to your fellow commissioners? Are you talking about?
I'm talking about both because I'm not sure what level of notice would be required to have an amendment come forward. I think that we don't have to necessarily notice the public of an amendment to an amendment, but I'm not sure. I know that we do expect as a commission to be able to get proper notice. But I think we are the ones who set that rule, and I think we can change that if we feel like time is crunched and we need to have a shorter period of time coming out of a committee of the whole process. Does that make sense?
So the motion, as I understand it, is to reduce. Go ahead, Commissioner Ellenboss.
Well, I just wish to suggest that anyone who does not fully understand this, if you look under Roberts for a committee of the whole, you have an item that the meeting is called for. The open discussion allows you to make the nuances, change the nuances that are necessary to meet with the general body of the committee of the whole's opinion as to what should transpire. The hope, and that's what we didn't accomplish in the last one, the hope is that you come up with a consensus that is then presented as a recommendation, a resolution, which is recommended by the committee of the whole to the Charter Review Commission, and you then have a simple vote. Had we undertaken that, and it was new to this body, had we undertaken it in that manner, your issue as proposed would have been open to, would no longer be held to that original language you submitted. It would be the charter, the committee of the whole's recommendation to the body that would be up for vote, and it would have addressed it, and it would be a done deal. And that's where we are with what stands now. Yeah.
We have a motion without a second, so we're actually not in the discussion phase of this yet. Okay, we have a motion to reduce the amount of time needed to notice an amendment that comes out of the committee of the whole process. Do we have a second?
I'll second for purpose of discussion.
Okay. I saw Commissioner Morales and then Commissioner Redding.
Yeah, I thank you so much for that point, Commissioner Ellenboss, because I think that makes sense to me that when we ended our committee of the whole and went into a more formal Robert's Rules mode at the end is when we might have been able to say that we voted to approve these moving forward in amended form at the next meeting. And so I think if that would satisfy what I'm trying to motion here, I think that would be amenable to me as a solution if that meets our standards of both Robert's Rules and any public notice issues that I'm not sure about.
Commissioner Redding?
Yeah, the difficulty with trying to do things on the spot in a meeting like that, you're getting a lot of very valuable input that you often need to think about afterwards. I know I don't come up with solutions on the spot after a lot of input like that. It takes me a bit of time to think about it, to reflect on it, to think about how you bring these things together. So I don't think we can take an action at the end of a meeting like that. I think it takes time to reflect on it afterwards and think about how you put the pieces together. And so that's why that may be a good parliamentary move, but I don't think it's the best way of fixing something.
Commissioner Ellenboss.
So while I appreciate why Commissioner Morales brought that up. I'm gonna vote no if it's in that or if it goes through in that form, because there's no specifics as far as how short we're making it. We don't know yet when our committee of the whole meeting will be in relation to when our next regular meeting is. And I really want to make sure that there's transparency to the public. So they have this opportunity to get the notification, to read what we're presenting and be here.
Go ahead, Commissioner Morales.
Regarding this discussion, I think, if there are concerns around us having enough time to review, that's also an issue. I mean, I think, to be clear, I wasn't proposing that we on the spot write a full resolution and approve it. I don't think that's possible. But I did think it might be possible for us to say, we do agree that there's an amended version of whatever is before us that can move forward and be discussed at our next meeting. And I think that is what I was sort of going for. I don't know that we're prevented from discussing it anyway, though. And so maybe this is just moot. And I, with a voice sort of or a nod, I'm happy to withdraw this motion if folks feel it's unnecessary. Okay. I withdraw this motion.
Motion is withdrawn. Are there any other items for other business? Okay. All. Our next meeting will be Thursday, April 24th at 6 p.m. at Cordata Elementary School. The meeting will take place in the cafeteria. We need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Any objection to doing this by consent? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, meeting is adjourned at 8:09.
Yeah.